When was the moment you realized someone actually hated you enough to try and ruin your life? It's a terrifying thing to realize the person you thought was just a quirky, overprotective mother is actually a full-blown predator, especially when that person is your husband's mom. I'm talking about a level of calculated cruelty that will make your skin crawl, because what started as a simple red flag at our engagement dinner quickly escalated into a nightmare where we feared for our lives. Ryan and I met in this completely random emergency response class, and we just clicked. His family, at first glance, seemed normal enough. His dad, Michael, was quiet, but pleasant, and his sister, Tara, was genuinely cool. But then there was Deborah. Oh, Deborah. The first hint that something was deeply wrong came at our engagement dinner. Ryan stepped away for a moment, and Deborah, still smiling, leaned across the table. Her voice was a low whisper, chillingly calm as she said she'd waited too long for Ryan to find someone worthy, and she wouldn't just let anyone into their family. I laughed it off, thinking she was just being funny, but her eyes were dead serious. That's when the first chill ran down my spine. After we got married, things got weird, fast. She'd show up at our apartment unannounced at 7 in the morning on weekends, supposedly to drop off food, but really, I think, to make sure we were both there. She'd call Ryan constantly with these ridiculous, fake emergencies. One time, she called him absolutely sobbing, convinced she was having a heart attack. We rushed over, terrified, only to find her sitting on the couch, watching TV, perfectly fine. "Oh, the pain passed," she said with a shrug, "stay for dinner." I tried to talk to Ryan about it, but he'd lived with her manipulation his whole life and thought it was normal. "That's just mom being protective," he'd say. And I'd just think, no, this is absolutely insane. Then, things went nuclear. I got pregnant, and we were thrilled, but we wanted to keep it private for a while. Somehow, Deborah knew before we told a single soul. She showed up at our door with a tiny baby outfit, a smug smile on her face, saying, "For my grandbaby." I was only 6 weeks along, I hadn't told anyone. When I asked her how she knew, she just gave me that unsettling smile again and said, "A mother always knows these things." 2 days later, I was checking our shared calendar on Ryan's iPad when I saw these bizarre appointment notifications. They were reminders for the check-in every few days. I clicked on one and my stomach dropped. They were scheduled calls with his mom where he was supposed to update her on everything about me and the pregnancy. She'd been making him spy on me, report back on my every move. When I confronted Ryan, he completely broke down. He was crying, truly sobbing, admitting his mom had always been like this, always controlling everything. He confessed she had access to all his accounts, read all our messages, and had even installed some family tracking app on his phone that he couldn't figure out how to remove. He said she threatened to cut him off from the family if he didn't keep her updated on absolutely everything. I was livid, but also just terrified. Who does this? We agreed we had to change all our passwords and create some serious boundaries. Ryan promised he'd stand up to her. That night, he called her and told her she needed to respect our privacy. She seemed to take it well, which, in hindsight, should have been a screaming red flag. A week later, the real chaos began. I started getting these weird texts from numbers I didn't recognize, asking if I was still selling my wedding ring or if I was looking for divorce lawyers. Then my friends started calling, asking if Ryan and I were okay because they'd heard we were splitting up. It turned out Deborah had created fake social media profiles, pretending to be me, posting in local groups, declaring my marriage was over and I was leaving Ryan. The absolute worst, though, came when my boss called me into his office, looking incredibly uncomfortable. He showed me an email he'd received, supposedly from my mother. My mom, by the way, died when I was 16. This email claimed I had serious mental health issues and was faking my pregnancy for attention. It had private details about me, things only someone very close would know. I literally collapsed in his office. When we finally confronted Deborah with all the evidence, she didn't even deny it. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, with pure venom, Ryan deserves a real woman from a good family, not some orphan playing house. I was in shock, but Ryan, for the first time, went ballistic. He started yelling at her, telling her she was sick and needed help. That's when she smiled, a cold, calculating smile. I've already called Tara and Michael, she purred. They're waiting at our house. We need to discuss Ryan's future and how we're going to handle this situation as a family. Ryan asked her what she meant, and she simply said, "You think this is the first time I've had to save you from a mistake? Ask your father what happened to Jessica." Ryan looked like he'd seen a ghost. Jessica, apparently, was his high school girlfriend who had suddenly moved away years ago. He stammered, "What did you do to Jessica?" And Deborah just laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. "Nothing she didn't deserve. Now come home, son, without her." Ryan grabbed my hand, and we just left. In the car, he was shaking so badly he couldn't even drive. He confessed that his dad had always hinted that his mom had taken care of a problem with Jessica, but he never understood what that meant until now. Jessica had gotten pregnant at 17 and then, after telling only Ryan's mom, she suddenly moved away. We went straight to a hotel. Ryan called his sister, Tara, putting her on speaker. She started crying immediately and confirmed our worst fears. Deborah had terrorized every woman Ryan had ever dated, just like she did with Jessica. She had threatened the girl's family with some kind of blackmail until they sent her away. Tara said Deborah had a file on me, dating back to before we were even engaged. That night, around 3 in the morning, we heard someone trying to open our hotel room door. When Ryan looked through the peephole, he stumbled back in shock. It was his dad, Michael, just standing there, silently. If you read my last post, you know my life basically got carpet-bombed by my mother-in-law, Deborah, and her absolute refusal to let me exist as a human being married to her son. I wish I could tell you it calmed down after we left our apartment and went into hiding, but that, my friends, was just the beginning. If you're looking for neat, happy endings, go watch some cozy TikTok couple. If you want to know what it's actually like to get hunted by your husband's family because you dared to marry their precious boy, buckle up. So, we left off at the hotel, right? Me and Ryan, basically shaking in a mid-range chain hotel room, trying to process that his dad, Michael, had just stood outside our door at 3 in the morning. Not knocking, not saying anything, just standing there. I still don't know if he was trying to scare us, or if he genuinely thought we'd just open the door and hand ourselves over like toddlers, but either way, it was creepy as hell. Ryan was pale and completely wired, pacing around the bed. I was texting my aunt at 3:20 in the morning, trying to figure out if we needed to call the police or just, I don't know, set up a Home Alone-style trap with the ironing board. We did what any panicked, sleep-deprived couple would do. We piled a chair and my suitcase against the door, checked the peephole every 5 minutes, and called down to the front desk, whispering like absolute idiots. The night manager said he'd check the security footage and send someone up. But by the time anyone bothered to show up, Michael was gone. Cool. Thanks for nothing, hotel security. I barely slept 40 minutes, and when I did, my dreams were all versions of Michael silently lurking in the hallway, holding a butcher knife or, for some reason, a giant fish. No idea why, but my brain was just broken. At like 6:30, the manager called up and said Michael had left something at the desk for us. Just the way he said it, polite, but definitely uncomfortable, made me want to crawl out of my skin. Ryan insisted we shouldn't go get it, but I just couldn't not know. So, I sent him down to collect the envelope while I stood at the door with the phone in my hand, ready to call 911 if anything felt even slightly off. Ryan came back up looking weirdly gutted, holding a plain manila envelope. Inside were 4 photos of him as a kid, awkward school pics, him at a birthday party, that sort of thing, and a folded note in Deborah's handwriting. I swear her handwriting is like angry cursive, all sharp points and underlines. The note said, "Family is forever. We can forgive you if you come home and talk to us without her." And then, as if that wasn't enough, she'd drawn a little heart and signed it, "Mom." I actually laughed. The kind of laugh where you're almost crying. Like, really? This is your play? Emotional blackmail via yearbook photo? Ryan just sat on the edge of the bed for a while, turning the photos over and over, not saying anything. Sometimes he gets like this, lost in his own head, stuck between wanting to please his parents and wanting to burn everything down. I get it, but it also makes me want to throw stuff. That's when the calls started. At first, I thought it was just spam, but then the hotel phone rang, which is definitely not normal. I picked up, ready to tell someone they had the wrong number, but it was Deborah's voice, all fake, sweet, and high-pitched. She said she was downstairs in the lobby and needed to speak with her son privately, and that I needed to come down and face the consequences of my actions. I just said no, not happening, and hung up. But she kept calling, both our cells, the hotel line, even the stupid WhatsApp number Ryan never uses. Each time, her messages got nastier. She said if I didn't come down, she'd start telling people the truth about me, that I was unstable, manipulative, and not fit to be a mother. She threatened to go to my aunt, my friends, even my old neighbors. All because I married her son and wouldn't let her run my life. At this point, Ryan finally snapped out of his fog long enough to text Tara, his sister, and just said, "We need help. Mom is here." Tara, who is probably the only person in that family with a functioning brain, texted back that she was coming over ASAP. And she brought her boyfriend, Devin, who is like 6 feet of pure, try me. I've literally never been so happy to see 2 people in my life. Tara brought coffee and 2 bags of snacks and just started cursing out her mom in the hallway. Devin stood at the door with his arms crossed like a bouncer, daring anyone to try something. We spent maybe an hour barricaded in that hotel room, all 4 of us, passing around paper cups of burnt coffee and trying to figure out what the hell to do. Ryan was still in shock. Tara kept pacing and ranting about how Mom had lost it this time. And I kept refreshing my phone, half expecting some viral post about me to pop up. Devin, for his part, just kept muttering that if Michael showed up again, he'd handle it. It was the weirdest double date of my life. Around 10 o'clock, it all exploded. There was this banging on the door, like not a polite knock, but full-on, "Open up right now," pounding. I jumped about a foot in the air. Devin got there first and just stared through the peephole, then motioned for Ryan. It was Deborah and Michael, both of them looking absolutely deranged in the hallway. Deborah started screaming, "Open this door. This is a family emergency." Michael just stood there, arms folded, not saying anything. Devin told them to leave, and Deborah started shoving the door like she thought she could break it down with sheer willpower. I don't know what I expected, but I definitely didn't expect what happened next. Deborah actually managed to force the door open a few inches. The hotel lock held, thank God, and she reached in and grabbed my arm. Not gently, not, "I want to talk." It was a full-on claw. She yanked, and I yanked back, and for a second, it was just a tug-of-war with my own mother-in-law in the middle of a hotel hallway. I screamed, "Get off me, Deborah." Tara was right behind me, trying to pull her mom's hand off, and Devin was yelling at Michael to back off. A couple of hotel employees finally ran up, followed by some guy in a suit who I guess was the manager. Deborah let go of me, but not before hissing, "You're ruining everything, you stupid girl." Like, okay, Cruella. The hotel staff threatened to call the police if they didn't leave, and Deborah started ranting about how I was kidnapping her son and endangering the baby. Michael looked uncomfortable for the first time, but didn't say anything. Tara started filming with her phone, and I honestly hope that video never sees daylight because I looked like a raccoon who hadn't slept in a week. The police came, obviously, because nothing says, "Good morning," like 5 squad cars outside your hotel. Deborah was screaming at the officers about how she needed to save her son and protect her grandchild, while Michael just glared at Devin like it was his fault for existing. The cops separated us, took statements, and told Deborah and Michael they were banned from the property. Deborah tried to argue, but the officers shut her down. Tara's boyfriend sent me the video, just in case. After that, the adrenaline crash hit me like a truck. I felt gross, shaky, and just done. I wanted to go home, but we couldn't. I wanted to call my mom, but, well, she's been gone for more than a decade. Ryan tried to hug me, but I just sat on the bed with my head in my hands. The only thing that helped was Tara sitting next to me, whispering that I wasn't crazy, and that her mom had always been like this, but it was getting worse. She said she'd never seen Deborah go this far, not even with Jessica, which, yikes, still not over that revelation. We checked out of the hotel just before noon. The manager apologized, but it was obvious he was just glad to see us go. I don't blame him. Who wants domestic drama in their TripAdvisor reviews? Devin offered to drive us wherever we needed, so we loaded up our stuff into his beat-up SUV and just sat there for a minute, trying to figure out what the actual hell to do next. Every option felt unsafe. Go home? Not a chance. Another hotel? Deborah would find us. Stay with Tara? Her apartment is tiny, and Michael has a spare key. Don't even get me started. Our only real option was my dad's place. He's a retired guy with a big old house and a frankly excellent security system. Plus, he's never liked Deborah. He lives about 40 minutes away, but it felt like another planet. The drive to my dad's was silent, except for Tara and Devin, quietly debating whether they should change their locks, too. Ryan stared out the window, clutching the envelope of childhood photos like it was a bomb, and I just kept scrolling through my phone, watching the group chats blow up. People were asking if we were okay, if the rumors about us splitting up were true, if I'd really threatened to hurt myself. Thanks, Deborah. I didn't even bother replying. I just wanted to get somewhere no one could follow us. Pulling into my dad's driveway felt like reaching the finish line of a marathon I never signed up for. He was waiting on the porch, arms crossed, looking every inch the "don't mess with my kid, Dad." I hugged him so hard I nearly broke his ribs. He didn't ask questions, just ushered us inside, handed me a mug of tea, and said, "You're safe here. No one gets in without my say-so." God bless old men who still trust in deadbolts and motion lights. We crashed in the guest room, and I finally got a few hours of real sleep until my dad's phone started blowing up. You guessed it. Deborah had found his number and was now calling him, demanding he bring her son home and return her grandchild to the family. Dad hung up, then blocked her, which is more than I can say for Ryan, who still won't block his parents. I get it, sort of. He's scared, but it's infuriating. That night, the 4 of us, me, Ryan, Tara, and Devin, sat around my dad's kitchen table eating takeout and making a list of everything Deborah had done. It was like putting together a true crime podcast, except the murderer was my mother-in-law, and the victim was my sanity. Tara admitted she was scared her mom would come after her next, and Devin said he was ready to call the cops if Michael set foot anywhere near their place. Ryan just kept apologizing over and over until I finally snapped and told him to stop. This wasn't his fault, or at least not all his fault. Deborah had been like this forever, and nobody ever called her on it. I don't know where we go from here. We can't stay at my dad's forever, but for now, it's the only place that feels safe. Deborah is still out there, making calls, spreading rumors, trying to get everyone on her side. I keep waiting for someone to knock on the door or for my phone to light up with another insane message. Part of me wants to fight back, post the video, go public, burn it all down, but another part just wants to sleep for a week and pretend this isn't my life. If you made it this far, thanks. Seriously, I don't know if I'm looking for advice or just screaming into the void at this point, but it feels good to get it out. I wish I could say it's over, but something tells me Deborah isn't done. She never is. So, yeah, here I am again. If you're still following this story, first of all, I see you, and I'm sending you caffeine and solidarity, because living it was wild, but retelling it is almost as exhausting. This is where she drags my extended family into the mess, and things get even messier. We'd been at my dad's for maybe 3 days. It was weird, like being in high school again, but with more swearing and less privacy. My dad's house is old and kind of creaky, but he's one of those guys who still uses an actual answering machine, so there's always a weird beep in the background. I tried to keep things normal, helped with dishes, scrolled endlessly through TikTok, tried to ignore the fact that my notifications were blowing up every 5 minutes with some new drama. Ryan mostly hid in the guest room, playing mobile games or just pacing. We kept thinking, maybe if we just lay low long enough, Deborah would get bored and move on to obsessing about Tara's haircut or Michael's cholesterol again. Ha, if only. The first sign things were about to go off. My cousin Barbara called out of nowhere. She's a couple years older, lives about 20 minutes away, and we're not super close, but she's one of those people who always wants to mediate and keep the peace. She opened with, "So, I just talked to your mother-in-law. Why is she saying you're," and I quote, "refusing to let Ryan leave the house or see his family?" I almost dropped my phone. I tried explaining, but she interrupted a ton, saying she just wanted both sides. By the end, she was asking if maybe I should just meet Deborah halfway, which, yeah, let me just compromise with someone who tried to drag me out of a hotel room by my arm. I hung up, called Tara. She was pissed. She'd gotten the same kind of call, only her version was that I'd brainwashed Ryan and was keeping the baby from the family. The wildest part? Some people believed it. My Aunt Marilyn, my dad's sister, who's always been a little much, texted my dad an entire essay about family unity and how young girls these days don't respect traditions. I couldn't believe it was happening, but there it was. Deborah had started calling everyone she could find, spinning her version of events, and it was actually working on some people. Ryan, at this point, was barely functioning. He kept saying, "Maybe if I just talk to Mom, maybe if I explain." And I just wanted to shake him. Devin and Tara came over one night with pizza and tried to lighten the mood, but it was awkward. Devin was scrolling through his phone looking up restraining order drama stories, and Tara kept making nervous jokes. At one point, my dad snapped that if Deborah showed up, he'd call the cops before she made it up the steps. He said it with this look I'd never seen before, half, "I'm not joking," and half, "I can't believe this is my life now." Next morning, the real circus started. I went out on the porch to get some air and avoid the smell of my dad's burnt toast. And there was a letter taped to the mailbox, a white envelope, my name scribbled on the front. Inside was this rambling, half-typed, half-handwritten letter. Deborah said that if I continued spreading lies about her and her family, she'd have no choice but to take legal action for defamation and character assassination. There was even a "cease and desist" at the top, like she'd Googled how to write one and then just went nuts with copy-paste. She claimed I was slandering her to neighbors and destroying her son's good name. I read it out loud to Ryan and Tara. Tara was cackling, but Ryan just looked sick. I wish that was the end of it, but this is my life, so of course not. 2 hours later, my phone started blowing up again. This time with messages from friends and weirdly old acquaintances. Someone, gee, I wonder who, had started DMing people, claiming I'd been hospitalized for mental issues and was making up stories to get attention. One of my high school friends sent me a screenshot. There was a whole thread in a local Facebook mom group, complete with my wedding photo and a bunch of people arguing about whether I was unstable or just stressed. I should have known. Better than to look, but I did. And of course, I ended up rage scrolling through comments. Someone actually asked if Ryan was safe at home. Honestly, the urge to reply with a meme was overwhelming. Ryan tried to call his dad to get him to make Deborah stop, but Michael just said that the family needs to do what's best, and sometimes women get emotional. I swear I almost drove over there myself. Devin offered to go instead, but Tara convinced him not to start a fistfight in the driveway. We all sat in the living room eating ramen out of mugs and watching YouTube on my dad's old TV, half waiting for the next fire to start. It came sooner than I thought. Around 3 o'clock, the Ring doorbell chimed. My dad checked his phone and muttered, "You've got to be kidding me." Deborah and Michael were standing on the front lawn, arms crossed, looking like they'd just shown up for a family intervention, not a hostile takeover. I looked at my dad, and he just shook his head and pulled on his shoes. He's not a big guy, but he's stubborn, and he was not about to let anyone walk all over him or his house. I went outside with him, Tara right behind me. Deborah started up immediately, saying she was just here to get her son and make sure the baby was okay. Michael hung back, but I could see he was taking in the house, looking at the windows, probably checking for cameras or whatever. My dad told them to leave, said we'd call the police if they didn't. Deborah got louder, started talking about lawyers and family rights and parental duty. She actually tried to push past my dad to get to the door, and I stepped in front of her. She glared at me, totally unhinged. She said, "You think you can keep my son from me? You think you're better than this family?" I just stared right back and said, "We're not going anywhere. Go home." She shoved me, full-on open palm to my shoulder. I stumbled back, but Tara caught me. My dad got between us, and then Michael started yelling at Ryan, saying he was throwing his life away for a girl who doesn't respect tradition. Ryan just stared at the ground. It was chaos. Deborah was shouting. Michael was yelling. Tara was screaming at her mom to leave us alone. I could see neighbors peeking out through curtains. Devin came running out of the house, got between Michael and Ryan, and told them to back off. Deborah actually tried to slap Tara, but my dad grabbed her wrist. She yanked away and started screaming about abuse and assault. That's when the cops showed up again. Guess a neighbor finally called, because 2 squad cars pulled up, and officers got out looking bored as hell. One of them asked what was going on, and Deborah started in with her story, sobbing about her traumatized son and dangerous daughter-in-law. Michael tried to play the calm, reasonable dad, but the cop just kept writing stuff down on a little notepad. The officers separated us, took statements, and eventually told Deborah and Michael they had to leave or they'd be arrested for trespassing. Deborah tried to argue, but my dad wasn't having it. He told her if she ever set foot on his property again, he'd file a restraining order so fast her head would spin. After they left, the house was dead quiet. Ryan actually started crying. Not like ugly sobbing, but just silent tears, sitting at the kitchen table. Tara hugged him, and my dad just said, "Sometimes you have to pick your real family." Even Devin looked shaken, and he's usually the chillest guy in any room. I went to the bathroom and splashed water on my face, just trying to calm down. When I came back out, I found Tara staring at her phone, her face pale. She handed it to me. Deborah had texted her, threatening to cut her out of the will and never forgive her for taking her brother's side. Tara just shook her head and said, "Honestly, I'm done. I can't do this anymore." I hugged her, and for the first time, I actually believed her. She'd always tried to keep the peace, but Deborah had finally pushed her too far. We spent the next couple days basically hiding out. My dad changed the Wi-Fi password because apparently Michael once tried to hack our baby monitor, long story, and everyone kept their phones on silent. I barely slept. Ryan stopped eating much, and Tara alternated between rage texting her mom and stress baking cookies. Every time the doorbell rang, we all jumped. Then the next wave hit. Deborah started messaging extended family, telling them I was unstable, Ryan was being abused, and that my dad was harboring us. My cousin Barbara actually showed up at the house and tried to stage a mini intervention. She brought cookies and this whole speech about healing the rift. My dad basically told her to get her information straight before coming in hot with accusations. Barbara left, but not before giving me this look like I just ruined Christmas. But it didn't stop there. One evening, I got an email supposedly from a lawyer, warning me to cease all slanderous communication about their last name, family or face legal consequences. The email was full of typos and didn't even have a real signature, so I figured Deborah either wrote it herself or got some random to send it. I showed it to my dad, who laughed and said, "Let's see her try." Meanwhile, Ryan's phone started blowing up with texts from old friends, guys he barely even talks to, asking what the hell was going on. Apparently, Deborah was now telling people in their town that Ryan was missing, and I was holding him against his will. Devin offered to go stay at their place. At this point, I was just tired. Not defeated, not giving up, not even close, but tired in that way where you're constantly waiting for the next shoe to drop. I started looking up legal stuff, trying to figure out if we could actually get a restraining order. My dad called a friend who knew a lawyer and got some basic advice, but everything takes forever and costs a fortune. Ryan and I argued about whether to just move out of state. He wanted to, but I didn't want to be forced to run by Deborah. Then a new low. Deborah showed up at my dad's again, this time after dark. She brought Michael, of course. This time, my dad didn't even answer the door. He just called the cops as soon as he saw them on the camera. Deborah stood outside, yelling into her phone, saying she was being denied her rights as a grandmother and that the law would be on her side. The police came, told her if she came back again, she'd be arrested. Michael just glared at the house, then got in the car, and left. After that, my dad installed more cameras, put up a new lock, even got one of those doorbell alarms that blare if you touch the handle. I started keeping my phone charged and near me at all times, just in case. Ryan finally agreed to block his mom's number, and Tara did the same. It felt weird, like drawing a line in the sand, but also knowing the tide would just keep coming in. The fallout wasn't just family drama. Deborah called my old landlord, tried to get me blacklisted from renting in the area. She sent messages to my friends claiming I was unstable and needed help. Some people ghosted me. Others called to check if I was okay, but you could hear the skepticism in their voices. It was humiliating. One day, I went into the living room and found my dad staring at his phone, mouth tight. He handed it to me, and there was a Facebook post from Deborah, tagging half the family, saying she was praying for her son's safe return and asking for community support during this difficult time. People were commenting, some with prayers, others asking what happened, a few with not so subtle digs at me. The comment section looked like a war zone. That night, Ryan and I sat outside on the back steps, watching the neighbor's cat hunt moths. He asked if I still wanted to have this baby, if I was scared it would just make things worse. I told him honestly, I didn't know what I wanted except for Deborah to go away and leave us alone. He nodded, and we just sat there, not saying anything. The next morning, we made a decision. We couldn't keep hiding and hoping it would all blow over. We needed to actually do something, so we started prepping to file for a restraining order. My dad agreed to help with paperwork. Tara said she'd testify if it came to that. She was done protecting her mom. Devin started collecting all the videos, texts, screenshots, everything. It felt like moving from defense to offense for once. Not going to lie, I was nervous. Suing your mother-in-law? This isn't a soap opera, but here we are. But if you've read this far, you know by now Deborah doesn't give up easy. Filing paperwork is just the start. Okay, so here's the update where things got so public, so messy, and honestly, I'm still waiting for the other shoe to drop. The last post ended with us prepping a restraining order after she tried to storm my dad's house, set the family group chat on fire, and torpedo my reputation in our town. If you think the saga peaked there, buckle in. The week we started the paperwork, it felt like we were living in a bunker. Dad was obsessively checking the security cameras. Tara was sleeping on our couch, and no one could agree on what to eat. Ryan kept leaving half-drunk cups of coffee everywhere, which drove my dad nuts, but no one had the energy to care about chores. I kept expecting Deborah to show up at any moment, but it actually went weirdly quiet for a bit, almost like she was waiting for us to make a move. That freaked me out even more. You know that feeling when everything's calm and you just know it's about to explode? That. We finally got a court date. It took forever. Seriously, the amount of red tape just to file a basic restraining order is wild. My dad helped with the forms, which felt like some sad family project. Tara pulled together screenshots. Devin put together a folder of videos. His phone is now like 80% mother-in-law meltdown footage. And Ryan spent hours on the phone with whoever would listen, trying to wrap his head around the whole thing. I caught him once scrolling through old photos of his mom and him from when he was a kid. He didn't say anything about it, but he didn't need to. That whole week, Deborah went full nuclear online. She started by making a bunch of vague Facebook posts about losing her son to a manipulative outsider and praying for family restoration. She tagged Ryan, me, even Tara. Then she started DMing random people, asking them to pray for her grandchild's safety and help bring her son home. It was so embarrassing. People started looking at us funny at the grocery store. Some neighbors stopped waving. I got weird DMs from people I barely knew asking if the rumors were true. The old ladies at my dad's church group started dropping concerned hints about young marriages and stress. I mean, I even got a text from my ex-roommate from college like, "Hey, are you okay? Heard things are rough." Not gonna lie, I wanted to move to another planet. Meanwhile, Ryan was getting texts from Michael, his dad, every other day. Michael's messages ranged from, "You're being selfish," to, "Your mother is heartbroken," to these weird reminders about family traditions and what happened to Jessica. If you read the earlier posts, you know that name still freaks Ryan out. Michael never apologized, never took our side, just kept trying to guilt-trip him. I asked Ryan why he even read the messages, and he just shrugged. I think he was hoping for some sign that Michael would finally step up, but honestly, it was never going to happen. I wish I could say we handled all this with grace and dignity, but mostly it just made us snappier and more awkward as a couple. We fought about stupid stuff like whether to get takeout or try to cook, who was hogging the charger, whether to answer the landline or let it go to voicemail. My dad kept reminding me to eat. Tara kept stress cleaning, and Devin started spending more time at his own place, which I totally get. Even the cat started hiding when voices got raised. The day before court, Deborah pulled her biggest stunt yet. She showed up at my dad's place with Michael and tried to serve us with grandparents' rights papers. I'm not even kidding. She'd found some printout online and written in all the blanks herself. She handed it to me on the porch, all smug, and said, "I'm going to fight for my grandchild whether you like it or not." I told her to get off the property and slammed the door. The actual court day was surreal. We all got up before sunrise because Ryan was so anxious he couldn't sleep. Tara did my hair in the kitchen, hands shaking the whole time. My dad put on his only decent suit, which he hadn't worn since my mom's funeral. We packed all the evidence, printouts, phones, USB drives, the whole 9 yards, into a grocery bag. Ryan and I barely spoke on the drive. He just kept tapping his foot and scrolling through Reddit on his phone. When we got to the courthouse, Deborah and Michael were already there, standing with their arms crossed and faces like stone. Deborah had her hair done and was wearing this weirdly formal dress like she was there for Sunday service, not a restraining order hearing. The waiting room was tiny and tense. Deborah kept glancing over at us, and Michael stared at Ryan like he wanted to say something but couldn't. Tara sat between us, scrolling through her phone, and my dad kept muttering under his breath about wasting a whole day on this nonsense. The judge was late, so we all just sat there, pretending not to notice the glances from the clerk and the other people waiting for their own cases. One guy kept sneezing, which somehow made everything feel even more awkward. When our case was called, I felt this weird mix of anger and, I don't know, not fear, but something close. I was ready to fight, but also half expecting the whole thing to go off the rails because, well, look at how everything else had gone. The judge asked us to explain what was happening, and Deborah immediately launched into this huge speech about losing her son and fearing for her grandchild. She started crying, which, not going to lie, was a little impressive. She even had tissues ready. Michael just sat behind her, arms crossed. Our lawyer, well, technically my dad's friend's friend who agreed to help us out, tried to lay out the facts, the hotel incident, the trespassing, the fake profiles, the police calls, the letters, the threats. He had screenshots, videos, all of it. The judge kept asking Deborah to let him finish, but she kept interrupting, saying, I was trying to cut Ryan off from his family and poisoning the next generation. At one point, she tried to hand the judge a stack of printed out emails, but the judge just told her to sit down. Then Deborah started yelling about what happened to Jessica, which made the judge stop and ask for clarification. Deborah wouldn't explain, just kept saying, he knows what I mean, looking straight at Ryan. I looked at Ryan and saw his hands were shaking. The judge finally told Deborah that if she didn't calm down, she'd be removed from the courtroom. She slammed her hand on the table and hissed, You're all making a mistake. When it was my turn, I tried to just lay it out. How Deborah had been coming after me since before the wedding, how she'd shown up unannounced, called and texted constantly, tried to ruin my reputation, and physically grabbed me at the hotel. I read a couple of the worst texts out loud. At one point, I just said, I don't know what else to do. I just want her to leave us alone. Ryan spoke, too. Finally, he told the judge that Deborah had always tried to control his life, that he'd let it slide for years, but this was different. He said, I can't do this anymore. I love my mom, but I can't let her ruin my marriage. Deborah started crying again, but this time it wasn't as convincing. Michael just kept staring at the floor. The judge asked Tara if she wanted to add anything, and Tara stood up, voice shaking, and said, I love my mom, but she's hurting people. She needs to stop. The judge nodded and said, they'd heard enough. The ruling felt like it took forever, but the judge finally granted the restraining order. Deborah cannot come within a certain distance of us. Can't contact us directly, and can't show up at my dad's house. The judge said some stuff about escalating behavior and how this was about safety, not family drama. Deborah tried to argue, but the judge just ignored her. She started yelling, saying, this isn't over. You'll regret this, and had to be escorted out by the bailiff. Michael followed, but not before glancing back at Ryan. That look said everything, disappointment, anger, maybe a little fear. After court, we all just stood outside for a while, trying to process what happened. Tara was shaking. Devin grabbed her hand, and my dad actually smiled for the first time in weeks. Ryan just sort of deflated. Like the last bit of hope he had for reconciling with his parents was gone. I felt weird, not happy, not sad, just tired, but also, for the first time, a little safe. But of course, Deborah wasn't done. Over the next week, she started telling everyone she'd been wrongly accused and unjustly banned from her family. She posted about us on Facebook, tagged random people, even tried to start a GoFundMe for her legal expenses. Some people in the community took her side. Others messaged me to say they were sorry for what happened. My Aunt Marilyn called again to say she thought it was all blown out of proportion. My cousin Barbara stopped talking to me completely. It messed with my head, not gonna lie. Ryan and I fought about what to do next. He wanted to move out of state, start over somewhere without all this baggage. But I was stubborn. I didn't want Deborah to win by driving us away. Tara said she wanted to stay close, at least for now. She was worried Deborah would try to find some way around the order. Devin suggested we all get together once a week just to keep an eye on things and check in. For a while, it felt like we were in a weird little support group, sharing updates about whether Deborah had tried anything new. Meanwhile, life kept rolling. The baby was still coming whether we were ready or not. My dad bought a new video monitor for the house just in case. We started looking for a new apartment somewhere not so close to the drama. Ryan blocked his mom on everything, and Tara did the same. Devin helped Tara change her locks. I kept my phone on silent, just in case, but every time it buzzed, my heart jumped. So, yeah, that's where we're at. If you're still here, thanks for listening. And if you ever see someone's mother-in-law lurking in a hotel lobby at 3 in the morning, trust your gut.